Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management, a weekly conversation with area leaders about how to persevere during uncertain times. Now here's your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. It's good to have you listening along today because as we talk about cool things that happen in our state, one of those is right down the road, and it's the Abilene and Smoky Valley Railroad. And our guest today is Ross Boelling, who's a general manager. That operation takes care of all of the important stuff. Is that right, Ross?
That's correct.
Okay. So how did you get involved with railroads and in the Abilene and Smoky Valley Railroad specifically?
Well, I'm originally from Harrington, which of course was a Rock Island town back in the day. My grandparents and father worked for the Rock Island. They never wanted their kids to work for the railroad, so I did it. I've done a number of different things in my career. I was a dispatcher for the Kansas Highway Patrol, and I worked for the Kansas State Fire Marshal's office for a bit, and was a computer systems analyst for a bit. And then when I was 40, I decided, well, the railroads were paying pretty good and they were hiring. And so I was interviewed and hired by the Southern Pacific, became a train dispatcher in Denver. And I did that for a few months and then went to Montana Rail Link in Missoula and ended up in Kansas City with BNSF and retired as a train dispatcher with 22 years service in 2018. My wife's family lived up by Woodbine, and so we moved back into the area. We actually rehabbed a barn, and that's what Lynette and I are living in now. So I've been involved with the railroad since about 2016 or so as a volunteer. And in 2019, Mary Jane Ord, who is a longtime manager here in Abilene, told the board that she was going to retire, and they didn't believe her. And so in 2020, she told them again. And she actually finally did retire at the end of 2021. So I, at the wages they were able to pay, I knew they weren't going to get anyone really good to do the job. So I had some railroad experience, was interested in that organization, and they hired me as the general manager. Then I was elected to the board in January. So I'm just starting my third year here already as general manager.
Well, what's exciting about this is that, you look at challenges that comes across the way, and your railroad is no different. You may be a dispatcher in a different way than you were professionally, but you have been working to reinvent what goes on. And for those that don't know, tell us a little bit about what happens at the Abilene and Smoky Valley Railroad. What takes place?
Okay, well, we are a heritage railroad with a museum. We're basically a museum-based organization. It's just that our museum is 100 feet wide and 5.5 miles long. So we have a number of different things that we do. Our educational mission is to help people understand and remember what railroads have done for Kansas. I know that railroads are not represented on the state seal, but a good percentage of Kansas communities are here because of the railroads. Basically, my gist is Kansas built the railroad, or the railroads built Kansas, rather, and then they brought people to the state. They established communities, and then they built Kansas agriculture because Kansas agriculture, with the plentiful land that we had out here and good environment for crops. It was the railroads that helped build that industry in Kansas. And so it's kind of a symbiotic relationship even yet today. The railroads haul a lot of Kansas grain products out, and the farmers and ranchers utilize the railroad to do that. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship as far as money and everything, but they still need each other to keep things going. And a lot of the state is here. Abilene, for example, because of the Chisholm Trail, and the railroads are the ones that took the cattle out. Tremendous amount of grain moves out of the state. So we want people to understand that. We have a lot of people that don't understand the connectedness of the railroads to Kansas and to Kansas agriculture. So we're trying to help build that back up, help people understand that.
Well, Ross, one thing, and I have to say this, when I see you get to it, now it's annoying when you have to wait on a train, But if you have a chance to just watch the power, what those trains are hauling, when you take a look at doing that, they're just massive. And
Yep.
to actually be able to go ride on a train. So if I want to buy a ticket, I know there's a couple of fun events coming up. And by the way, are there any seats left on the Valentine's Day train?
There are. We do have about 20 seats left on the Valentine's train. So
Is
yeah,
that
as
like
far
the
as
love train? Is that like a
Yep.
love train kind of deal?
Kind
Okay.
of, yeah. We're actually the select choir from the Abilene High School is going to provide appropriate romantic music for the people on board. So it should be a lot of fun.
So that sounds like, so somebody buys a ticket for that. Not only do they get on the train, but they get entertainment, they get food and different things, but they get that history of being on a train back
Correct.
when you're talking about of traveling across the country and being able to do that. It's such a unique experience. What are the trains like today compared to what the ones they'll be riding on over in Abilene and Smoky Valley?
Well, there's not very many passengers trains today. Amtrak is the primary interstate rail provider, and they do move a lot of people. We like to take it. You can catch it in Kansas. You can catch it at Garden City or Dodge City or Newton, Topeka, Lawrence, and Kansas City, Missouri at Union Station. They're talking about extending passenger travel from Dallas up to Newton and Kansas City, but that hasn't been accomplished yet. But essentially, because of where Kansas is located, all the passenger trains typically pass in the dark of the night, so no one really sees them. But they haul, 300-400 people, and they have sleeping cars, and they have coach cars with food and all the
But they
modern
probably
amenities.
don't have a Valentine's Day card,
No, they
like
don't.
you do.
No, they don't. We're special in that regard.
So,
So the
on
cars
the
that we have,
On the Valentine's Day card that you have in that whole trip, is that where do you go? You board at Abilene, and where do you
okay,
go from there, and where do you come back
for
to?
all of our trains, we're limited in how far we can go. We boarded our depot at Abilene, which is 200 Southeast 5th Street. Get on the train. We leave at 6 o'clock for our dinner trains, which we've given new names for this year. We can talk about that in a minute. But you get on the train, we feed you your dinner between Abilene and Enterprise. It's only 5.5 miles. It takes us about an hour. We go pretty slow. And then at Enterprise, we stop. We have a bathroom break there, and then we have a operating grist mill where you can see Kansas turkey red winter wheat, which one of our board members grows for us. And they actually use some of the 1880s milling equipment from the Ursham Company or the Hoffman grain mills that existed in Enterprise. And you could buy some grain and then buy some flour and bring it back on the train, ship it by rail, just like
So is it about a 2.5 hour venture?
about 2.5 hours, 2 hours 15. Yeah, we try to give everybody plenty of time at Enterprise to get out, stretch their legs, and walk around. And we're a little bit faster coming back.
How fun is that? We're going to talk a little bit more about how someone can sign up, because I know all summer long you have different trips. I want to talk about that, and you also have some names. You've been working on naming your train. So hold on there, Ross. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after this. Our guest is Ross Boelling, General Manager of the Abilene Smoky Valley Railroad. Back with more after this.
The most successful investors are those that can keep their emotions in check and take a longer-term view at what portfolios will be worth 3 to 5 years down the road. I'd say that's the most important in determining what investor outcomes are. Market corrections will continue in the future. We've seen many of them over the years, only to see equity prices rise higher, and that'll be the case in the future.
Worth Wealth Management, enhancing lives and strengthening families.
Welcome back to Forward Ever. Good to have you again listening along as we continue our program talking about the Abilene and Smoky Valley Railroad with our guest, General Manager Ross Boelling. Ross, we went into the break talking about a couple of things. One, signing up. I want to hold that off for a second because you have some new names for your train. Why? Why do you have new names?
Well, historically, all the namesake railroad all the railroads had a passenger train name, kind of to impress the public on how good the trains were and how fast they moved and that type of thing. And we have a variety of different trains that we do. One is we just call dinner train, which is not very romantic. So in 2024, our dinner trains will be referred to as the Smoky Valley Limited. And our excursion trains, which are the ones that are just more educational and go back and forth between Abilene and Enterprise, we are calling the Flint Hills Express. And that kind of, we want to help people understand the regionality of our railroad specifically. We're not just an Abilene attraction. We, in 23, we had riders from 42 states, as well as 51% of the zip codes in Kansas were on our train last year. So
That's cool. Ross, what's your biggest challenge?
the biggest challenge right now is we're trying to raise some funds. We still have some track work that we need to do. We want to get our track back up to snuff where we are. And we were able in 22, we spent about $400,000 putting new ties in. We still need to continue that trend. We're going to try and do that this year. And of course, our biggest draw is our iconic steam engine, the Santa Fe 3415 Pacific, which is down for maintenance every 15 years. It has to be, the boiler has to be torn apart and rebuilt and inspected and everything to make sure it's still safe. And we're still beginning to get the money raised for that. That's going to be about a $600,000 endeavor that we're going to try and get done over the next several years before we can bring the steam engine back.
So how many volunteers take, and because I know it's not just you that makes this happen. You have to have a
Right.
whole group that helps support this, including somebody to drive the train, clean up, cook, all
Right.
that. How many people are involved?
We have about 60 active volunteers, and we picked up about 15 in the last year or so. So the turnaround or the changes that we're making are garnering attention to people that like to volunteer for those types of things. But we have our train crews and workers come from Wichita, Hutchinson, have one from Glasgow, several from Topeka, Bonner Springs, a couple in the Missouri side. We have one gentleman that drives up from Miami, Oklahoma to volunteer with us. So we have a lot of draw. We have some new people from Abilene, or I mean from Salina that are in Manhattan that are coming over to work too. So
There's a certain mystique about a train.
Right.
And being a train, whether you've grown up around that, family's been a part of it. How much of that can be preserved with what you're doing?
well, all of it. Just as an example, we do a Santa Claus train, and we're going to have a bigger Santa event this year. But so in 22, we did 9 Santa trains. We can haul 100 people currently inside of our enclosed cars that are heated, which was because of a fantastic grant we got from the Schmidt Foundation that allowed us to upgrade the heating and sound system and electrical systems in the cars. But in 22, we sold out 900 seats. It was entirely sold out like 3 weeks before we even started. So we thought in 23 we'd add some more. So we had 31 trains, which would be 3,100 people. We were sold out by the 7th of December. Every train was full. So we had a family that drove in from Goodland just to ride the Santa train. And the nice thing about our central location is we noticed we also did a Peanuts Express pumpkin train this last fall. But what we have noticed is with these types of events, because of the location, people from Western Kansas will meet people from Kansas City. We had people that would buy 20 tickets on our Santa train to make it a family outing. So that's the type of thing we want to be able to continue. And people have so much fun, as the word gets out. And I guess Steve Smothers was telling me that they figure in the Manhattan, Fort Riley area that they have about a third turnover in population every year just because of the movement of people in and out. So it's something we need to continue to reintroduce to folks to bring them. But everybody enjoys it. About 2/3 of the people on our last dinner train, which was New Year's Eve, had never been on our train before. And so we're hopeful that they had a good experience and they go home and tell people and they tell people. And that's how we want to grow. We had a little over 12,000 riders last year, which was the largest number of riders we've had since 1990, late 1990s. So the word's getting out.
That's fantastic, Ross. It's some things up here as we close. Somebody's listening to this, say, hey, boy, that'd be fun to do the Santa train, the Valentine's train. I know you have a full schedule coming out in March that's going to list what trains are running and what you can do. But where's the best place to go? I know you're on Facebook, but where else can
We
people
have a
go to
Facebook
buy the
page, which is
tickets to
pretty
do that?
active. Our website is ASVRR for Abilene Smoky Valley Railroad.org. And you can go there, and we're continually updating that page. And when our schedule comes out, it will go there, and you can purchase your tickets from there. Our depot hours during this time of year are kind of iffy. It's kind of our down season. So you can call, leave a phone number, or actually, if they have questions, they can send an email to info@asvrr.org, and we'll respond to those usually within 3 or 4 days.
Well, I like that, and people can get a jump on that because I know you sell out a lot of those specialty trains. So if you look ahead, see what's going on, get that on your calendar. And
Right.
you know, all the letters sound like alphabet soup, but if you just think of it as Abilene Smoky Valley Railroad, it fits in well.org, and just do
Right.
the first letter from each one of those and do that. You can also probably do a search on Facebook and find your Facebook page and be able to connect that way. So Ross,
Right.
keep up the good work. Keep
Thank you.
those volunteers all doing the right things, especially that Mr. Smothers guy. Know him from when he was a disc
he
jockey.
keeps me in
So,
line. If
yeah,
I can throw one more thing in real quick, we do have 34 dinner trains that we're going to do this year. We're going to continue our Heritage Series, which is the railroads that have been affiliated with Abilene. We're going to do something special for D-Day. This is the 80th anniversary. We have a locomotive that kind of has some ties to that. And we just have a lot of fun things planned this year. It's going to be a great year.
that schedule comes out. I have it. Schedule's coming out on March 17th.
March 1st is what we're
Okay.
hoping.
So just here in a
release.
few days, you can go March 1st, pull up and find out what the schedule is. Get your seat on the train and see just an amazing part of Kansas, an amazing piece of Kansas history with the railroad. Ross, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Ross Boelling has been our guest here today. He's the general manager of the Abilene Smoky Valley Railroad. Thanks for listening to Forward Ever. It's brought to you by Worth Wealth Management, where you can live with confidence. I'm Gary Shorman.
Thanks for joining us for Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management. Join us right here next week for another episode with host Gary Shorman. Until then, remember to move forward ever, backward never.